What's going on, you guys? Welcome to the Unlock Your Freedom podcast with Kevin Kepple. If you're looking to create more in your life, and if you want more of anything, it's not about doing more, it's about being more. So I'm excited you're here, and I'll see you guys on the inside.
What you do is really helping people just bring exceptional leadership into their lives, whether it's personally or professionally. And I'm curious what you think some of the really dominant leadership traits are of the people you've seen that are really high-level leaders, regardless of their position.
Yeah, no, thanks for asking, Kevin. Actually, the first one I was thinking about is something that you talk about and that I've heard you talk about, and that's leading with authenticity. That's just, being the person that you really are. And some of the most natural leaders out there, they're just authentically them, and you can tell by how they communicate, how they bring their best self every day, and how they have, a great deal of humility. So for me, some of the first things that in leaders that I've followed or things that I try to portray when I'm leading a team, a group, is one, the authenticity, but two, leading with humility and not thinking that you have all the right answers, but definitely that, you can be trained and taught as well from the team that you're leading to make sense to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the authentic trait, man, I totally agree with that. It's like you got to be like authentic to who you say you be, authentic to your values. And am I like owning the core values that I espouse? And I think that is such a powerful thing for leaders to do, because for one, it keeps me out of this trap of spending a lot of time doing things that don't provide a lot of impact, right? Because when I really understand what I value and what's important to me, that really helps me align with the things that are important to me, the things I want to increase in my life. Because, if I spend time being busy, then I just get more busy. I don't want to be busy. I want to be productive. And I think like one of the other leadership traits that's really important to me, and that I've noticed a lot of really powerful leaders have, regardless of what position they're in life, is decisiveness. It's like you can make the best decision in the world, but if you take 2 years to make a decision and needed to be made in a day or a week or whatever, then that's not a great decision. And so having this ability to make decisions quickly and effectively is really crucial. And I was curious, like, what kind of like mistakes have you seen, especially around just decision making from the leaders you've worked with or just followed or known?
Well, it can go kind of a couple of different ways on decision making. I think making decisions in a vacuum is the number one mistake I've seen from what I would call poor leaders, because they don't ask questions of the team, they don't ask questions of the process owner or the expert, and they make a decision to A, either just make the decision, or B, to try and prove how smart they are, which kind of comes back to that humility thing. But yeah, I agree. Making quick decisions is good. Having good discernment is a big thing in leadership. And I think team problem solving, team decision making, working with a group is so powerful, and it keeps you from making mistakes. And that doesn't mean you move slow, but it does mean that, I think empowering others to help in that decision also, A, it gets you a better answer, but B, it gets you buy-in from the team. So it's a proverbial 2-for-1 when you do it that way.
Well, I think that's a really great point, because people are much more likely to support what they get to help co-create, because that gives me this feeling of autonomy. Like I have, personal agency, and I get a say in the way I'm going. And just thinking back in time to a young Kevin as a leader, I did not ask questions of the people I led. I had a very authoritarian leader, and I thought that's like, oh, you're supposed to yell and scream and like just like my way or the highway. And
yeah,
like that, I don't know if you fell into that trap or not, but fortunately I learned how to do better and really ask questions, because I don't have all the answers. And Steve Jobs had that really cool quote where he's like, we don't hire smart people so we can tell them what to do. We hire them so they can tell us what to do. And so is that learned behavior for you on really empowering people through questions, or have you always been pretty curious?
I guess I have to say that it was very situational for me. When I was pushed, I guess, probably reacted in a way that was less desirable early on, because I didn't introspect and think, okay, how is what I'm going to say going to affect those around me? So I think that was one thing, but I was really lucky, Kevin. I worked for a organization that really valued people. And because of that, we had a training and development department. So I learned pretty early on what my weaknesses were, as well as, maybe a few strengths I had. And so I got an opportunity to lead at a higher level than I deserved early on, and got a lot of feedback and coaching, not just from my mentors or the coaches, the executive coaches that we were afforded, but also from the team. And so, I think my inner bent would have not been good had I not had somebody leaning into me on purpose, having a coach to develop me. And so for that, I'm super grateful.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. I'm really curious. So when you're working with somebody outside of you, because I know, like, obviously vision's important, because if I don't know where I'm going, it makes it hard to know what action to take, or if I even get there, I wouldn't even know if I didn't know where I was going. And so, like, when you're either somebody's mentoring you or coaching you, or you're mentoring and coaching somebody else, like, what are some of the types of questions that really have helped you gain a lot of clarity on, what it is you truly want and why you want it? Because I think that at the end of the day, that's the two questions we're trying to answer, right? What do I want and why?
Yeah. Ooh, man, that's a tough one. I think it's really important to set vision and goals. I mean, I'm thinking about, higher level leaders. How do you set that vision? What are the goals or the KPIs that are going to help you and the team align? And communicating that. So, if that doesn't sort of lead to the answer to the question, I'm not sure.
So what about the KPIs? Like, what kind of KPIs have you found to be the most practical and also impactful when you're leading? Because, they're unique to each project.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, certainly with KPIs, it's something that has to be measured, right? That can be measured. And, I guess for me, I'm going to give an example of something that happened probably about midway through my career in the manufacturing realm. Is we had a CEO who was a very interesting guy, kind of an introvert, but had a very specific way about how he created vision and cascaded that vision across the business. So he would create every year goals for safety, for quality, for people development, for sales, for product management, and those sort of things that were really important for our manufacturing efficiency, whatever. And he would cascade those on a 3x5 card so that everybody in the organization, especially on the leadership teams, knew what his goals were. And then behind that, what they asked us to do is to create 3 to 5 personal objectives, KPIs, that we would do to make sure, the guy's name was Dennis, to make sure that Dennis hit his goals. And so we would develop those, we would send them in, and this is where it gets super powerful, Kevin, on the KPI measurement, is that quarterly we were asked to fill in, how are we coming against our goals for the year, where are we struggling, where do we need help, whatever, fill all that out, and it was sent in. And I think in this particular organization, we had 30-ish plants, give or take, and maybe 40 or 50 distribution centers. So there was a plant manager or a site manager or, a specific leader for each of those. And so think about, this is 70 sort of KPIs, goals that were coming into Dennis, and he would physically read each one of these. And this isn't a red pen, but he had a red pen somewhere, and he would make notes on what you sent him, and then he'd write you a personal note and send it back to you and say, hey, really great job on this. I see that you're struggling here. What can I help you with? Or he might even say something as wonderful as, you need to get your butt busy on number 5. And so, that's one way, I think, for accountability. He held himself accountable. He cascaded that down. But, the important thing is that as a site leader, if you were doing a good job, the people under you also understood what was on your 3x5 card, which you sent, and what their goals were to help you as a site leader, a manager, leader, to hit those as well. So it's really a process I'm talking about here. You asked maybe for specifics, but I just think, when you create KPIs, they can't just be, how much money are we going to make, right? It's got to be the things that lead to people development and retention. It's got to be safety and quality. It's got to be some sort of efficiency, and product management, customer facing things. So I think it's got to be a variety of things that align with your corporate vision, your entity vision, your certainly your culture, I guess. So it's a really long answer, I know, but there's a lot of things that go into creating the right measures, and I could go on about it for days. We could start creating KPIs for this podcast.
Sure. But that's the thing. They're unique to each kind of project too. So that's they're not like universal. And there's a concept of UPIs, like universal performance indicators that
right.
I first read about it in a book by Michael Neal. I think he might have coined the term, but it's a little more, I don't know, intangible. Like, are you inspired? Are you excited about what you're doing? Are you engaged? Are you confused? And like a confused mind doesn't think, right? Like if I'm confused, like it's just reactive behavior, but it's so powerful when I have these KPIs that drive me towards whatever the goal or objective is, because it's really easy to look at it and did I do this? Yes or no? And what went well, what didn't? And I think that's the one place that so many people give away their power is giving up the opportunity for reflection, because reflection is where we actually get experience from our experience. It's not usually while we're in the moment. And just looking back, like what's going right? What's going wrong? Based on that, what do I need to keep doing? What do I need to stop doing? What do I need to start doing?
Yeah. Kevin, you said a word, inspirational, and really we started off the podcast talking about what's important for a leader. And we talked about authenticity. Maybe we talked a little bit about visioning and developing units of measure for what's good, what's not. But being inspirational and having an inspirational message around the vision and the goals and the, culture is huge. And I just wonder what you were thinking about. You said inspirational. It's inspirational, motivational. Do you have any more on that maybe you could share for us?
I think I know what you're asking, but if I'm not inspired, I can't give inspiration to others, right? And the goal is not necessarily inspiration. The goal is really motivation. And I love the concept of the full intrinsic motivational stack. Like Daniel Pink talked about it in his book Drive. Stephen Kotler's talked about it. But the full intrinsic motivational stack is basically the internal things that motivate us, based on thousands of years of evolution as humans. And it starts with curiosity, and then it's passion, purpose, autonomy, and mastery. And the thought is when I have those things stacked, I'm biologically designed to perform at a high level because of the chemical composition that provides inside of me, like dopamine, neuroepinephrine, serotonin, oxytocin. And I mean, it translates to pretty much anything we've ever done. I mean, think about any relationship you've ever had, right? With your spouse. At first you were curious. Maybe it was what's wrong with this person? But eventually, you wanted to know more about them. And
she said.
Yeah, that's usually from the female side to the dudes, right? What's wrong with this guy? And, but then the passion emerged, right? You started, finding some love, which is passion, right? And then the purpose emerged. I could build a life with this person. And then if you don't have autonomy, which is freedom in your relationship, you're probably not happy. You're not going to be there very long. And then spoiler alert, relationships are hard. Mastery is crucial. We have to get better at them or we're not going to be in them very long. And so as a leader, it's brilliant. You talked about asking people questions because that's the first step. That's curiosity, right? What do you love about your job? And what do you love that you do? What do you not like? Because contrast gives us clarity. And then, that's the whole point. And life is to understand what makes us unique and how we can use that to create value for other people, right? What makes me unique? That's the things that I love, right? And then I create value for other people. That's purpose. And really just asking the right questions is such a brilliant way to get people excited and motivated. And so that's kind of where I was coming from on that.
Yeah, no, I think it's really good, and you break it down into the motivation, and boy, you took it down to a really granular level when you think about all the neurochemicals and, all that kind of stuff. So that's outside of my realm. I think I hopefully I created a few of those neurochemicals without knowing what the hell I was doing. So.
Yeah. Oh man, I I know how much better we perform when we feel good, right? So I'm constantly looking for ways to feel better so that I can perform better, because the more I grow, the more I can give. And that's the whole point in leadership. It's really, how can I empower and inspire other people to continually evolve towards their best self? And, we're all in this thing together. Let's shift gears for a second before we get out of here. I'm curious, I know you like to read. What kind of books do you love to read, especially around leadership and influence?
That's great. It seems like I've had a book for every season. Right now, I'm really focused on my faith and bridging or tying my faith into my business and what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm reading a pretty good one right now called A Trip Around the Sun. And what it really goes into is living your life every day and not waiting for the perfect timing and for conditions to be perfect to live and do the things that you always wanted or needed to do. So that's one of them. Rereading. I'm sorry, Kev, go ahead.
Do you know who wrote that, The Trip Around the Sun?
Richard Foth. It's written by two guys, Richard Foth and Mark Batterson, I believe.
Oh yeah,
of that.
Yeah,
they've got a few books. I think Mark is a pastor up in Washington D.C. He's got a multi-church kind of set up in D.C. And then Foth is he's a faith leader of sorts. He's been a pastor and a mentor to lots of budding pastors. But it's an interesting. I recommend the book. Just it's a relationship, a mentoring relationship where it goes both ways. The sage, the guy that has been around the sun a few times, call it 70 plus times, and then the young, highly energetic young father, young pastor. Also mentoring the sage, and it's had just an interesting back and forth on the way the book is written. It's kind of
Mark Batterson's got some great books. He's a really interesting, engaging writer, and his stories are pretty powerful. And it's faith based, but there's so much practical application in there just for really anything you're doing. And I think the last book I read of his was A Circle Maker, which is, I read 3 or 4 of his books, and people keep sending them to me, and that's awesome. I'm always grateful. Like when I get a new book, I'm like, oh man. I think it's so cool too when we read books like this, because it helps clarify our vision, and we can leverage somebody else's genius in a couple hundred pages, or if that, and maybe not make some of the mistakes. And that's the big thing that stops all of us, right? Is just spending a lot of time doing things that bring little value or impact. And, people with experience in an area where we may not have it, through their trial and error, they figure out the kind of the best places to cross the river, so we don't have to figure it out on our own, and we can repurpose that energy we save for, whatever, for our family, for our relationships, our, time, purpose.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. I talk about this all the time, because it's one of my areas that I didn't do well on early in my career. I let my health not be good. I let my family down a lot because I was too busy focused on work and what I needed to do and all those goals and visions and crap that I was talking about earlier. But you'll hear me talk about a lot, Kevin, is that good leaders take and make time for themselves so that they create margin. What I mean by margin is that space between, all of us have a certain amount of capacity, right? And if you're working above your capacity level, you just have no time for your family, your friends, or your interests that really give you energy. So my point is to create a little bit of space, a little bit of margin for yourself. And I think, just like working a muscle, right? That's total capacity goes up. So whether that's, going to church, being part of a group, working out, going mountain biking, whatever it is, for you, I think it's maybe mountain climbing or being in nature, right? And I think it's just super important for leaders to not just be good leaders of their people, but good stewards of themselves, their energy, and so that they can bring their most powerful and authentic self every day when they are engaged with their teams.
Yeah, that is a brilliant point. And I know I overlooked that a lot when I was younger. It's like I can't pour from an empty cup. And, self-care isn't just about me. Like, the better I feel, again, the better I'm going to be able to serve. And, it's like, it's so frustrating when you're stuck in this, like, all hustle and grind space. And then you feel like you're letting everybody down. And you're like, I'm working my tail off and like I'm still letting everybody down. And then I don't feel appreciated. And I start personalizing all this lack. And it puts just a really nasty slant on everything because I've got this kind of little problem, but I'm holding it right up against my eye. So that's all I can see. And then like, you know, it's just like everybody else is frustrated. And it's like, man, like, what's the point? Like I'm working this hard to be miserable. I could do nothing and be miserable. And so like, I felt like you were telling my story a little bit there. So that's
well, I mean, I think it's anybody. I think anybody that's come to any level of worldly success, we'll call it, has been in periods where they were overworking and not giving back or putting time in with the things that matter most. And, you know, family, faith, your friends, and frankly, yourself, you know, taking care of yourself.
Ooh, yeah.
And, you know, I think if more leaders spent more time planning and thinking through how are they going to create margin, they would likely lead a whole lot better when they were engaged with their teams and have the energy and inspiration and that motivation you were talking about to make the teams better. That's all I was trying to say.
Ooh, yeah, no, totally agree with that. Well said. All right, last question for you before we get out of here. What does freedom mean to you? It's on the Unlock Your Freedom podcast here.
Oh wow! Well, I should have prepared for that, knowing the name of the podcast.
Threw you a curve.
You know, I guess for me, freedom is feeling like when I get up in the morning, I have something important to do, either for myself or others, that's going to make a difference, but it's my choice, right? It's not by force. It's not somebody telling me what I have to do. It's me waking up and saying, I'm going to make a difference and doing it my way, as selfish as that might sound. Doing something for others and doing it in a way that can only be, you know, sort of authentically and uniquely.
I don't think that's selfish at all, because when you're creating the way that only you can create, that's owning your genius. And you know, that's why God gave you all these gifts, so you could create in a unique way that serves everyone else in a way that they're not going to be served unless you're doing it, because only you have what you have. So well said.
Oh, thanks. I'm gonna take that and use that to make me feel better the rest of the day.
All right, brother. Well, thanks for coming on with me, man. We'll jump in with part 2 shortly. So we got a lot of ground to cover because leadership's a really never-ending, unfolding topic. So, man, give us one last thought and we can get out of here.
You gonna give the last thought, or you want me to?
No, man. This is from you. This is your time to shine. If you had one message you could get everybody in the world to hear, what would it be?
Ooh, gosh. All right. So we're talking about leadership, and here's the one thing I want people to take away. And we didn't talk much about communications, but I suspect we're going to talk about that in coming episodes here. But I would say, guys, go out and communicate authentically, listen to your people, take action, and make sure that they understand and feel heard. Got lots of opportunity and lots of tools to help with that. So feel free to reach out to Kevin or I, and love to help with your communication and your leadership.
Yeah, well said, man. And, you know, Brandon just gave a little tease, but we have a leadership accelerator coming up for people who are looking to go further, faster, and really unlock their freedom and just, you know, make the impact they're capable of making. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for being here, you guys. See y'all.
Thanks.
Alrighty, you guys, thanks for making it through to the end of the Unlock Your Freedom podcast with us. Really grateful to have amazing listeners like you. Thank you guys again for listening. We love you, and we'll see you next time inside the Unlock Your Freedom podcast with Kevin Kepple.